I have been HIV positive for 26 years. 15 years ago, I was diagnosed with full-blown AIDS, and I actually became homeless and living on the streets. Ended up going, an AIDS service organization offered me housing. I was living there when the new medications came out. I started to get healthier, decided to go back to school, got my AA, my BA, my first master's, my second, I just graduated last May with my second master's. So I get a phone call from the university telling me that they had a job for me. I actually wasn't even looking for a job. It came looking for me. So I started to do a lot of research about how can I go back to work, because I do have my Social Security disability at the federal level. I also have the PAC waiver from the state level. Now, if you go back to work through Social Security disability, it has what's called a Ticket to Work program. And there's certain regulations and policies that you have to follow in order to go through that program.
Now this is voluntary. The Ticket to Work is voluntary. You can use the Ticket to Work, or you can do it on your own. Go ahead.
And you can.
When you say, can you say SSDI and SSI?
Yeah, I'm sorry, SSDI. I have SSDI because I worked enough. I worked since I was 14 years old and was able to put enough into the system to be able to get it back. That does make a big difference. So my disability check is not high, but it's a little bit more.
It's SSDI, I got you.
Yes, SSDI. The Ticket to Work program, you have a 7-month trial period where you're allowed to make as much money as you want, and it will not affect your SSDI check whatsoever or any of your Medicare benefits, whether it be Medicaid.
I'll show you a chart on that.
A, B, or D. Now that's the federal level. But then you also have to worry about your state level if you're on Medicaid or a Medicaid PAC waiver, which I also am, which I was assigned a caseworker through the Ticket to Work program. Now she was familiar with what would happen at the federal level. She had no idea what would happen to my Medicaid benefits. She just had no clue, was not at all helpful in that area. And luckily I'm a pretty smart person. I try to do a lot of research, and I have great friends that I can go to and ask questions. And then I also have my HIV case manager, who she is a PAC waiver case manager, but she didn't know anything. It ended up getting very, very screwy. I started working, and about 3 months into working, I found out that I was losing my Medicaid. Because I didn't know, even though I tried to do a lot of research, even though I tried to talk to a lot of people, I didn't know how to protect my Medicaid aspect of it. Long story short, I ended up having to open up what's called an irrevocable income trust account. Medicaid PAC waiver has an eligibility limit of $2,022 a month. So if I make over that amount, I automatically lose my Medicaid. But, oh, go ahead. It's an irrevocable income trust account. Now, if you call...
You may hear it called a Medicaid trust account.
But if you call Medicaid and ask them about this account, they're going to pretend like they have no idea what you're talking about.
It's on their website. The information's there, and it's in, and we'll talk about this. It's in what's called the Red Book, and I'll talk about that
in most states, but...
No, as far as anything that is Medicare is national.
Medicare.
Medicaid is state by state.
So
that's a program that's funded by the federal government as well as the state, and each state puts in what they can to, and like if you go to New York City, Medicaid there doesn't even look anything like we have here. And
but they do have irrevocable trust accounts up there.
Okay,
but that irrevocable
to...
trust account is something that's part of the federal requirement.
Okay, but so the irreversible account issue, is that for Medicaid or Medicare?
Medicaid.
Medicaid, so not Medicaid.
Not Medicare.
Okay, I just want to make that clear. So
but that is something that is a federal requirement for Medicaid programs.
Gotcha.
Okay.
It gets very, very complicated.
They don't make it easy to understand, okay? And the fact is that they have to have all these rules and regulations and so forth, but it would seem that they're trying to dissuade people.
But we are our best, I mean, to get advice, you need to go to your peers. I mean, caseworkers are wonderful, but of course they can't keep up with all the regulations, the policy changes. That's why it's so important to advocate for yourself and get the knowledge for yourself and ask your peers who have been through it so that you're going to get better answers from them sometimes. We had a question over here?
Yeah, was that 2,200 was the limit?
It's $2,022, and I'll show you a chart on that. I'm going to also have this on my website, this presentation that you'll be able to download. And it'll have all the charts. And this is, I mean, you would have to go to like 5 or 6 websites to get all this information.
Yes, this is.
And
So I don't have a pen or anything. Will you give me something?
I will
Okay.
give you one of my cards.
So one last question, is that, I understand the difference between Medicaid and Medicare. If you go back to work, is there another program that I have to be concerned with for Medicare?
Well, Medicare is through SSDI.
No, I know, but my question is if going back to work, am I subjected to having a problem?
I'm going to go over that with you.
And that's tied into
So
the
I
Ticket
want
to
her to-
Work program.
Okay.
Yeah, and I want her to finish telling you.
Okay,
what-
go ahead, I'm
Okay.
sorry.
So, and I had to open up this trust account. Now, the process was a little scary because my caseworker had no clue what it was. We had to get her supervisor, who really didn't know anything about it. She had gone to somebody else to get some information. So when we're sitting in this little office, she has this notebook of things she had written down, and I'm asking questions she couldn't even answer.
Is that a bank account?
Yes, it is a bank account. So what they did was give me this paperwork. It was all typed up and printed. I had to get it notarized and go to a bank and open it. Now, my bank refused to open the account. They do not do irrevocable trust accounts. They don't touch them, would not do it. It was a credit union, so that's probably why it's different than a bank. I had to go to another bank. Went to the other bank. The bank refused to notarize any of the paperwork. So I had to go to a notary, even though it gets complicated because they're notarizing your signature and not the paperwork, but that's a whole nother story. So I finally got the account open. I am still, and this was only happened a month ago, I opened this account. I'm still not quite clear what I'm allowed to spend out of this account. Any money I make over the $2,000 limit has to be placed into this account. I have to have a trustee on this account. The trustee of that account can pay certain bills for me and medical expenses, but I'm not real clear on what can be spent out of that account. And maybe Joe can answer some of those
Now,
questions in his
what's
presentation.
put into that account, anything drawn out of that account counts as income for that month that you draw it out of the account.
So I
Okay.
can't draw it out. My trustee can pay my bills,
They can
but
pay the
I
bills,
can't go
but it
into
still counts as income. So anything you draw out of that, if you better make sure that you're still under the 2022 limit when you pull that money out, because it does count as income.
That's not what I was told.
Even if the trustee.
Okay, that's not what you were told.
I was told I was allowed to pay my mortgage, my living expenses, entertainment. I could go out and get myself a brand new car, make the payments out of that, and it's not actually counted as income towards anything. That's what I've been told.
Wrong.
See, this is how complicated this and scary this process. I had some anxiety, some huge anxiety issues over this because I didn't want to give up. I wanted to go back to work. I want to work.
But isn't that counted as an asset, that irrevocable trust income? Because I know when I was applying for the Medicaid, anything that you have, unless it's one car
I'll
or
show
your
you the
house where you
limits.
live in, that's not
I have a
counted as
chart.
asset. But
I have
anything
a chart.
other
The
than that-
idea is to put into the account and spend it out on a monthly basis.
But it is not counted as your asset. Okay, what happens is, this account, when you die, this account goes to the state for any medical bills that Medicaid paid for.
That's why you
Now,
want to
if
put it in
there's
and spend it
anything
out.
left over, they will cut a check to your, to whoever it goes to.
Is that like
Okay.
going
So it will
Your
go to the
beneficiary.
state of Florida, not
It
Yes.
goes to
The
the
state of
Medicaid
Medicaid
program in the
office.
state of Florida.
Your house does too. If Medicaid pays any medical bills for you and you own a home, when you die, they'll put a lien on your home. So that in the state of Florida, not all states are like that. Yes, some states do, some states don't. That's why sometimes it is, although we don't all like lawyers, but
unless it's owned by somebody else at the same time. They can put a lien on it, but they cannot take the house as long as the other person lives in that house. And they can't force the money out of that individual if it's joint property.
But if the individual
If they're
ever wants
married,
to sell it.
it's different. Here again, there's a marriage penalty, so to speak. But if two individuals that are not married own a piece of property, then that's a joint investment, and by law they cannot penalize someone else.
You should be
Okay?
taping this.
And so a lot of people get this stuff mixed up because there's so many nuances about the law and about joint property and so many other things. And a lot of times people don't get the right information. You have case managers that only know their job and what they do. You have people at the Ticket to Work office that only know their job, okay? They are not trained on how different programs interact with one another. Some of them know how these work, but they are not required to know anything more than being efficient at what they do and the program that they work with. Some of them go the extra mile and know some of this information, but in many cases, this is their compartment, their thing, and that's what they do. They have no idea what's going on in the cubicle next to them. Okay?
And this trust account is only going to protect me for that 7-month trial period if I still want to maintain my disability process, the disability that I get from the government. So after those 7 months, I'm literally going to need to cut my hours down to 14 hours a week to stay under the federal limit that you can't make over $1,000 a month, otherwise you could lose your disability. Now, I'm still not sure whether I want to cut my hours to 14 or give up my disability altogether. In today's economy, I am scared to death to give up the services that I do have. My medication is so expensive.
That's a difficult decision.
And with the programs that are being cut, where is that going to leave me?
With your job, is it a job at a university?
I'm working at a university, but I'm a temporary employee, so I'm not offered benefits. Now, they possibly could offer me benefits, but then what would my co-payments be on my medications every month? I don't know that I could make enough to be able to survive. I get very tired. I've been dealing with, like I said, for 26 years. I'd like to think that I can work 40 hours a week and just feel good all the time, but that's not the case. I know that I have boundaries and need to take care of my physical health.
Is it the state system? The university?
It's University of South Florida I work for.
So you would be in the state system?
Yes.
So you would have state insurance. I just retired as a case manager, and that insurance for your HIV medicines is good.
Yeah, it is.
I'm still, literally, this is all very new to me. I've only been working for a few months now. I love what I do. I'm actually doing behavioral health interventions with women that are living with HIV positive. I'm on a research team that is studying the delivery of interventions over a video telephone. This is some amazing work that, I didn't look for this job. He found it for me and handed it to me. So that's why I don't want to give up my desire to work and find purpose in my life.
I think when you come into the state system, they don't ask about, there's not a pre-existing condition clause.
They have an open enrollment period, just like most companies do. And during that open enrollment period, there are no pre-existing.
I'm also concerned, though, would I make enough money to make all my co-payments on my medication? My medication is $4,000 a month. I'm on 10 different medications, not all HIV, but some.
Now, this is the thing. When you start a job, you want to know exactly what they offer. Now, when you look at the policy, there's a few things that you need to look at. What part of it is yours? What part do you pay? What are your co-payments? What are the deductibles? Are they per month? Is there a cap on it per year for the amount of medications? And many companies will have a cap, say $2,500 a year on medications. If they have a cap like that, that insurance is not going to work for you. So you want to make sure that it's unlimited. And also the other thing you want to look at is there a lifetime cap on that policy? And some policies have $250,000 lifetime. And then they'll pay it fine, you know, and then all of a sudden one day they'll say, you've reached your limit. That's fairly quick for some people like us. It's going to be pretty quick. I accidentally kicked this thing and turned it off. And now,
didn't they change that law that now they can't have a cap? Like my group policy.
If the health care reform is not repealed,
Which in the state of Florida, they're trying to stop
Yeah,
it.
because it's like $1 million, and once I get that, then it's.
This whole process for me has been very, very nerve-wracking. People walk up to me and tell me that I'm literally crazy. What are you doing, Vickie? You have it made. You're getting your benefits. You're getting everything taken care of. Why are you stepping outside of that? But for me, I just, in my heart, my soul, somewhere there's more to this. And if I want this to be able to work not only for me but for other people in my shoes.
So if you go back to work, you can never go back on?
now.
It can get, there is.
You want me to explain that?
Yeah,
You
and
go
I'll let
ahead.
him continue, because it is his presentation, and I could probably talk for hours, and I won't do that.
But this is the thing. You have a 5-year guarantee. If you go back to work, that should your health return to where it was, you can get back into the system.
But it has to do it in 5 years.
You have to do it within 5 years. Okay? Now, at the same time, what you have to do is you have to make sure when you're going through this and you decide you want to go back to work, you have to use the system to your advantage. You go to your Social Security caseworker and you say, I want to attempt to go back to work. Okay? My doctor says I'm still disabled, but I want to go back to work. Okay? So they don't immediately just drop you out of the system. Now in Social Security, there is a review process, a medical review process. Now this medical review process takes place on a 1, 3, or 7-year basis. And that's determined by your case manager and when they determine your disability.
That's your review.
What is the basis of your disability? Some of you might have already been through this process. And it is a frightening process. But this is why I'm saying that you don't want to go back to work the wrong way, like just go back to work and then them find out from your from the fact that you're paying back into Social Security that you've gone back to work. Then anything that you take at that point, you have to pay back if they determine that you're healthy again. Okay. Now what you want to do is work with them so they don't put you through a medical review process.
Well, that brings.
Go ahead.
Okay. So if you have a 7-year period and for review, they can review you and then literally pull you off if they want to? If
they review you and your doctor in correspondence with, after you fill out the form, after you filled out the form and submitted all the documents, they may say at this point, we want you to take a physical exam or something like that. And they may call you in and do a physical, look over your and they've already reviewed your medical records and so forth. They may determine that you are no longer disabled, medically disabled.
Even
they
though
can
you
stop.
still
They
take
give you
advantage.
about 3 months checks, but they can stop your Social Security. Now, however, if your doctor says you're still disabled and you have the paperwork, you don't have to worry about that. In most cases with HIV, I can tell you right now that most of the time it's not something that's documented, but in many cases they don't mess with people with HIV now, because most of the people who are on it now have been on it for some time, because today, for someone with HIV to get on disability is damn near impossible.
Well, because
You have to have not only a CD4 cell count below 200, but you have to have at least 2 persistent opportunistic infections that are almost untreatable,
Well,
okay? That persist over time to be able to get onto disability to begin with.
I know I'm talking a lot, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Because I'm just getting on, and I read in the Wall Street Journal that they've changed the criteria for people to get on now.
Right.
And I got my check in 2 months because I had 3 T cells, and I was literally in the hospital for 3 months.
Well, there
and
you
I
go.
had multiple disorders. So then when I read that article, I'm thinking, well, God, are they gonna come pull
No,
me off?
no. You probably immediately, are you in Florida?
I'm in Georgia.
In Georgia, okay. If you were in Florida, you would have immediately been eligible for Medicaid as well as being okay for Social Security, but your Medicare would not kick in for 24 months,
24 months.
except in exceptional cases.
It's the same.
So,
It's the same.
no,
I'm
that's
just
a
concerned
federal
of having to
program.
be
That's
forced-
the same everywhere for Medicare, and it's 24 months.
Okay.
But right now, you're on Medicaid because you
I'm on
yeah, they probably gave you
It just
presumptive eligibility right away, and that was it.
Right.
Okay? That's an exception to the rule, and when we see in mostly heterosexual cases, when people come in, they have probably had it 10, 15, 20 years and have never been tested, and then they go into the hospital and they've got 10 T cells left, and they have multiple conditions, and they usually go right into it.
So someone with multiple conditions in that situation,
Right.
they may not necessarily pull you
Yes.
off.
But see, with all of that, I think it depends on a case-by-case basis. Because when I went to apply
is.
in November for the disability, the Medicaid, and everything else, I got the letter in December saying that I was approved for Medicaid, but the state of Florida denied me I was approved in December for the disability, but the state of Florida denied me for the Medicaid and.
Because of income, probably.
It wasn't because of the income, it was because I had a piece of property. And they
Okay,
allowed
well,
us
you,
to
okay,
exercise it. So-
that's different. If your assets are above the limit, then you don't qualify. This is for the people that basically don't have anything. That's what it's for. And so if you are over the income limits or you're over the asset limits, then you're either gonna have to get rid of the assets, hide the assets, or what, I didn't say that. Anyway,
So by other people, how to do that.
but I'm not talking about me. I don't know where that came from. Anyway, yes.
Yeah, when I went for my yearly, or however long that is, for my SSI,
Right.
reinstatement or whatever you call it, they found out that my mother had left me some Indian land. I don't know whether it's through the tribal or I'm sole owner. All I know from that is that if I want a house built on it, I'd have to get my brothers and sisters' permission to get it built on.
Right.
So I don't know if that's for the tribal or.
Yeah, I can't tell you, but more, it sounds as if
And the Social Security woman was hounding me. The reason why I said something to her is because she kept saying if I didn't speak of everything that I may think of having,
Right.
whatever, that it's under perjury. Now they're trying to, I guess, cut me off of the benefits because of that.
Well, now, if this is something that's owned by the family,
No, I don't know if it's owned by the family or owned through the tribal agency.
well,
And all I could tell the lady was, call, I gave her the number to call and tell them to, for them to deal with it, because I have nothing.
right, you don't have any information further than that. They can't penalize you for not having the information. They have to assist you in finding out that information, but I'll give you my card later, and then we can talk about that specifically. Now, I also have an 800 number that people can call me and get information. What I don't want is for somebody to go through what Vickie has had to go through. Now, these are the questions that you ask when you're going back to work. Will I be able to keep my medical benefits? will my new employer insurance cover my HIV-related illnesses and medications? If it does, you're home free. And Vickie's, I don't know what the state policy is, but I hear it's pretty good. And if they can employ her as a full-time person, then she can get that, and she will have 5 years if she fails in her job to go back to Social Security. Okay? So that might be a good deal. Now, if not, how are you going to pay for it? Returning to work poses risk for your health. Will returning to work make me feel better about myself and healthier? Because, you know, like Vickie, it makes her feel good about herself that she's accomplished these things. She's gone back to school. She's gotten her degrees, and now she wants to be a working individual again